Alrighty, here we are for round one, game one. Fight. Would you like to play first? I think I would. Alright, have 2-drop will travel. The pit fight's looking a little rough here, but that's alright. That's alright. So all we're kind of looking to do is to attack with as much stuff as fast as we can. We want to get the Wobjack Halberdiers out first because we're a little crimped on red. And there might be a turn where we could play 2 spells in a turn, like maybe a aerial maneuver and a pit fight. But creatures first, obviously. So we will start with the planes. And go from there. Forest. So Simic or Gruul. The Simic deck should be pretty good. We saw a lot of good Simic cards go by. It's also a very aggressive Gruul deck you can make. I remember Derek Boyko playing some 14 and 15 land Gruul variants. Cyclops, not exactly the droid we're looking for, although if we hit a couple land drops, it might not be bad. Because again, we could go Skyjack into Pump Spell, Removal Spell, and then land a Cyclops. I would not hate this. These guys just deal so much damage. And then here we're going to see if they don't have a 2-drop, the game's almost over. Not quite, but close. So it looks like we'd want to slam the 3-drop here, and we might. However, if instead we play the Skyjack, we're attacking with 2 flyers and this is a first striker next turn. So I think I'd actually rather play the Skyjack here, even though it takes us off of mana efficiency. Alright. You got me. Really didn't want to have to use a combat trick here, but I gotta keep hitting them. Bleh. Okay, they had the 2-drop. It was just a surprise fish. A surprise fish grab, in case you were wondering. I wonder what we're splashing for. That's one of the few targets for pit fight, so if we can land a land this turn, I think we're just in fantastic shape. I'm going to attack first. They might have the pump spell and decide they want to trade with this, and we can potentially blow them out with the pit fight. Like, that would be them voluntarily 2-for-1ing themselves on board. So now the question is, do I want to play around it or not? Because if they give this +1/+1, it'll be a 2/3. That means I'm going to kill it anyway. So like, if they want to 2-for-1 themselves here, they can. I want them to not have that blocker next turn. So that what I'm getting at is there's a 1 mana +1/+1 spell that leaves a counter on them. And if they don't have it there, we can kind of just slam the door shut on this game. I just want them not blocking as much as possible. It's like I'm not sure what the white's for. Could be for a smite. But we're looking at attacking for what, 6, 7, 8 next turn? If I'm willing to take a turn off, I can also save it and just do the Cyclops this turn. I guess I don't necessarily need the battalion this turn. Another Shamble Shark would kind of wreck my day. Not really. I'd rather go for mana efficiency here. Sure, Arrows of Just Ice were going to get me either way. And that leaves me with the 5-3 attacking instead of a 3-2. I'm down with that. This just increases the opportunity for me to play 2 spells next turn. Arrows of Just Ice does make me consider being very careful with Madcap skills when we have it. But we're technically attacking for 11 next turn and do get to draw a card as well. Alright, they can make that a 2-5, which still doesn't trade with this. So they're going to need something in addition to that. Which they could have, but while they have it, they're still taking 5 in the air. Like, the Boros plan is progressing nicely. So they can trade these guys off, that's fine. Still taking that damage. This would have been a good place to have a combat trick, but we don't. Which is sad. This is a very good card in Simic. Like a 2-mana 3-5, I don't know if you could hear the air quotes, is a decent card. I guess I don't quite want to F6 because they're scared I have something. Like, what are you going to do? Just take all that damage? You can't take all that damage. It's a lot of damage. I guess you think you can. I like it. Yeah, I like the game a lot better when you're at 3. They think they tamed him, but he will always be a wild titan, a force of nature. These Sky Knights were so good. Just give a Windrake haste and it's an entirely different card. Alright, you can tap down 2 of my dudes. Problem is, if you tap down this one, you're dead to that one. We will see how this do. Because they're going to need to tap this down and then have another blocker to keep playing Magic. Ah, they've got the untap spell. Okay. So they're going to look to trade that for my... If they tap the Sky Knight Legionnaire, they 100% have that. Which we just beat with a mugging. So what's happening here is they're using a Dimir card that you get to tap one of your dudes once. Okay, they don't have it. Interesting line of play there. Alright. It's good to be me. Boros! 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 Rah! That's why I like Skinbrain Goblin. Sometimes you just get to win, and it's fun. So I really am not sure what they're up to. The Dimir cards, like you cast the spell and you get an effect, and then you kind of attach it to one of your creatures like an equipment, and then every time they hit, you get to do it again. So they were able to tap down the Cyclops casting it once, and then hit and do it again. So it's kind of like you can cast the spell twice that first turn, and then afterwards you've just buffed your dude if you have an attack. The problem was they didn't legitimately have an attack. Maybe they did from their perspective, but from mine they did not. If they're doing a lot of that, Pit Fight's actually a little bit better. Burst of Strength is the card I was worried about. Like, you get a counter on a dude and it untaps. Like, if they had tapped the Legionnaire, then we could almost be assured that they have Burst of Strength. And we would have had some difficult decisions about whether or not to attack. So I'm interested in the pit fight, but I may just not have room for it. I'm a little less interested in the Madcap skills because they've got like Arrows of Justice just blows that out. Like even the transport gets wrecked with that. Like we can save it till late because like if they've got Arrows of Justice, they're going to have to use it on our dudes. But like it's kind of like having another 5-drop or whatever because you're not using it in the beginning of the game. Like some of their stuff is small enough that we can actually get them with a pit fight. Like that 1-3, if they resolve it early, we could actually pit fight it with Halberdiers. But I think we need to just run this back. I don't think... Like they're playing green. They will have some big dudes as well. This has got the card we want to see in our opener, which is Wojak Halberdiers. So we are G2G. Nav Squad Commandos, we really kind of don't want to see, but we'll take it. Just a 2, no, just a rampy guy. Okay, that's a card. That's a card. It's a card we'd like to interact with, but kind of can't. If we can get the Bomber Corpse going, it'll do a thing. Like, most hands, Sky Knight Legionnaire just really turns on this hand. Because if we're able to ping that away, that would be fantastic. So somewhat decent chance that they're just looking to trade this off. Which means I could use the aerial maneuver and play a gate. I don't have to attack. Because again, if I can just land 2 creatures, the Bomber Corps will take care of that anyway. So this is the turn where you're like, do I play the dude or do I not? If I had a Legionnaire in hand, it's stupid easy. We play the Bomber Corps and move along with our life, but that's just not where we are. It opens up a lot of decision points next turn. Because the best thing they can do with 4 mana is nothing. I kind of want to attack. But if this is better blocking for them, then I'd rather just wait and eat it. I think that leaves me Bomber Coring and just getting this gate going. I get to look like a genius if we draw a Sky Knight Legionnaire. And we get our battalion going relatively quickly regardless. Because like if I have to just play out Bubba as a 2-1, we can just play out Bubba as a 2-1. Game's probably over if they slam a giant monster, right? But I'm thinking they don't have one. Maybe they do, we'll see. Okay, that's not a giant monster. And it is one we can interact with, like if they want to block and pump. Or if we draw Martial Glory. That's kind of the best of both worlds. So they can make this a 3/5, and then I can pump this to get through it. And if they pump, I can just pit fight it in response, and it's dead, and then still play the Goblin, and next turn looks great. So I feel like with all these tricks, it's a pretty easy swing with the Halberdiers now. Like, worst case scenario, we can still pump and pit fight and clear their board. So I just pit fight that. And it's gone. And then we can decide if we want to aerial maneuver here. We probably do. Maybe they don't block. That'd be great. If you're playing Gatecrash and you're playing against Boros and you have any sort of block. Get the combat trick out of their hand. I didn't want to necessarily go for that line, but here we are. Because again, the Bomber Corps answered it, but them sitting here with a 3-5 is just not going to work for me long term. All right, so they've got Shamble Shark mana, which they could easily have. That said, we're not here to block. The Shark makes this a 2-4, which could technically eat this. Could also technically eat this. Like, I've got so many tricks. We've got good attacks. They get a little bit better next turn. If they don't have the Shark, then we're just hitting for 3. All right, so let's say they play the Shamble Shark. They have a 2-1 and a 2-4. They probably block the 2-4 here and the Shark here. No, they do it the other way. They block this guy here and this here. All right, so there's a 2-1 on this. I could pump this guy's toughness to survive. I could pump this guy's power so that we at least kill it. So the board ends with me having a goblin and this. Or I can just attack and see if they have it. If they don't, that's fine. Or I can just play the Nav Squad commandos and then get in the attacks next turn with all of my tricks up. I'll play around it for 1 turn. Because next turn I get Battalion going. If they have the Shamble Shark, they kind of can't even play it into this open Bomber Corps. And this guy having first strike just gets better with Martial Glory. Bad news here is if they play something really giant, right? Like if they're able to get more evolve triggers on both of them, we've got serious problems. We've got enough tricks that we can still force damage. It's just like we may not be able to close that gap. And that evolves the Shark, but not anybody else. I feel like my attacks are okay here, but not necessarily great. That will eventually close out a game. Skyjack's pretty damn good too. So what happens if we swing team and ping here? I'm going to have to use the Martial Glory to force this through anything. I'm also going to have to use the Goblin to keep the Halberdiers alive. I kind of think that's okay. And then we just slam the Skyjack and say go. So what do their blocks look like? Block here. Martial Glory forces us through. Block here. The Goblin forces us through. Yeah, that looks kind of fine to me. The Like I think the Nav Squad Commando is just going to get in for damage, which is fine. If I was going to use a combat trick, I probably should have sent that at their face. And I am going to use a combat trick, so why not send that at their face? Okay. So we can Martial Glory to kill the Croconora, Skinbrand Goblin to kill this. They've got a Shark on the board, and we've got a bunch of good stuff. All right. All right. It's all on the table. They're only at 16. They got 3 cards. There's a lot of things that could go wrong here, but as far as board states go, this is not a bad one. We've traded 4 of our cards for 4 of theirs. We are out of combat tricks, so like one giant thing starts to pose a problem. And they do have fish crabs. We're also making any of their Blood Rush cards worse by attacking, because most of them are better as combat tricks than dudes. That's not necessarily the case with all of them. But it's a format that wants you to be attacking, in my humble opinion. You ain't attacking, buddy. Buddy guy, friend. I can hold that. We don't have any 6-drops. And it's Boros. You turn your dude sideways. Like, that's just what you do. It does make sense to ping this now, so that if they want to block this guy, they're at least still trading. I guess this does let them cast that Arrows of Justice that we saw too. If they trade for this and Arrows of Justice, the Halberdier, they could probably interact with the rest of our board. Like a couple of good blockers would slow me down a long way. Oh, it's bad, okay? No blocks? That is a bold move. That is a very bold move. Because like even Hands of Binding on this leaves you taking 4. I guess you bind this and that. Yeah, it's game over, man.